And moving on, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky spoke with NATO leaders on the sidelines of the annual meeting in Washington on Thursday. As the alliance solidified additional support for the conflict-struck nation, Zelensky said Ukraine was very close to achieving its goal of NATO membership. NATO members issued a declaration in support of Ukraine, promising additional aid and pledging to support its irreversible path to NATO membership.
At this summit, we are putting in place the foundations for Ukraine to prevail, to defend today and deter tomorrow. Yesterday, NATO allies adopted a robust package of practical support for Ukraine, including a pledge of long-term security assistance. Today, we will take further decisions together with Ukraine, making clear that NATO support is built to last, and affirming that Ukraine's future is in NATO.
Well, the NATO summit has wrapped up in Washington with billions of dollars more in aid for Ukraine and major support on air defenses. Several NATO allies have boosted their domestic spending on defense, showing how they are prioritizing security at tense times, particularly due to concern over Russia. At the same time, challenges to U.S. President Biden's leadership overshadowed the end of the meetings. DD India's Caroline Malone reports for more from Washington.
Joe Biden, president of the NATO summit's host nation, had the final word on Thursday, describing the alliance as of critical importance to the US and transatlantic security. NATO allies focused on supporting Ukraine at this meeting, defending the country from Russia and China, who they say supplies infrastructure and tech support to the Kremlin. The Secretary-General of NATO, Jens Stoltenberg, said that the message from the alliance is clear about China's responsibility when it comes to enabling Russia's war. Ukraine and the threats posed by Russia and China are of increasing concern to NATO's Indo-Pacific partners, who see it as an existential threat to the region. The groupings are pushing back with investment in defence and against cyber attacks and misinformation. Well, as for Ukraine, there are F-16 fighter jets on the way and more air defence systems from the US. NATO will station a civilian representative in Kyiv going forward and move a command post to Germany, where they will coordinate the supply of weapons to Ukraine. The US is also sending cruise missiles to Germany for NATO defence. Well, at the end of the summit, Hungary's Prime Minister, who's just back from trips to Russia, Ukraine and China, decided to go to Florida to meet with Donald Trump, the Republicans' presumptive presidential nominee. Trump has claimed he can end the war in 24 hours, a claim that President Biden and other NATO leaders have pushed back on. Well, Ukraine would need the Russians to leave their territory before any chance of peace talks. Well, all of this, though, is happening at tumultuous times for President Biden, who's being challenged by even members of his own party who are concerned over his age and lack of mental sharpness, with some even calling for him not to run again in this year's election. That's despite a successful NATO summit in the United States. Caroline Malone in Washington reporting for DD India.